I haven't made a video in a while. I'm not the kind of person that makes a video if I don't have something to say or a question to answer. And I recently had someone ask what I feed my different tanks. I don't think that there's a right way or a wrong way to feed our tanks as long as you don't overfeed. I've heard people that blend their own food and buy from the seafood place or from the seafood department in their grocery stores and blend it and make their own concoction. Some people feed frozen, pelleted, flake. I mean, there's so many ways to feed. And as long as you don't overfeed, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I've been doing tanks for my whole life, but really landscaped nice tanks probably for the last 15 to 20 years, and salt water for maybe between 15 and 18 years. And I've tried all different ways. And I don't know if I'm just lazy or if this is, it works for me the way that I feed my tanks. And it helps. I have fed frozen foods and things and had problems with more algae, I tried rinsing the frozen foods, and I get more algae. And the way that I do it now, I don't get any extra algae build up anywhere with the way that I maintain my tanks. So what I feed, I don't feed flake food to my saltwater tanks unless I just got a new fish that's having trouble learning to eat. Then I really dump stuff in my tanks that I normally wouldn't, trying to encourage a fish to learn to eat what I'm trying to get them over to eat. And I'm more diligent with my tank cleaning when I do that. Any food that you start, you should work up to slowly as far as coral foods go, because if you just start dumping your brand new coral food in that you've found online or something and you're excited about, at the dose they say most likely you're going to end up with algae blooms and problems. So anything you should work up slowly, or any changes, because the bacteria in there needs to build up the bio load in order to handle digesting the extra that is floating around and doesn't get eaten or whatever, or the extra different stuff that you're throwing in there. But what I do is, while my lights are off in the morning after I dose and I top off my tank, all my little corals have their little feeders extended. And so that's when I feed my coral food. And the only thing that I use is, I'll show you a picture of it if you hold on a second. Coral Frenzy. And I worked up, and I only give a little pinch on both sides of the tank by where my little water movement things are. And I feed this also in my 10-gallon in my bedroom. So I do that when the lights are off, because I figure the little particles will hit the tentacles of the things that have their feeder tentacles out. And I do it right before my lights come on, because that way, in reverse, as things close up and as the other things open up more, they'll get some of it as well. So coral food, this is all I've ever used in recent, probably the last 2 years. Before that, I did try some of the other new liquid foods and things on the market, but this is what I use. I also use the Reef Energy Part A and B, and I do consider that a food. And I have noticed that my colors are better when I use it, and it also does cause algae blooms like a food would. So I do use the Reef Energy A and B, and I do use this for my corals. This is the other food that I use, and it's a little teeny pellet. It's like it's not a big size. I don't know what millimeter size that is, if I can see. 1 millimeter size pellet. And I use this in this tank and my other tank as well. And it's a sinking pellet. And I use this because I just lightly put it on the top of the water, and my clownfish will go up and they will eat it. And whatever they don't want floats back to the bottom, or floats to the bottom, so that I have a serpent starfish in there, a banded serpent starfish, and he picks up little pieces that they don't eat, and also so do my hermit crabs and snails and things like that. And so I use that food, those two foods. That's, believe it or not, all I use in this tank is the Reef Energy, the Coral Frenzy, and the 1 millimeter spectrum sinking pellets. And I don't overfeed. I only put maybe 15 of the pellets in here, a few at a time, so that the clownfish can get to them, and then whatever they don't want sinks to the bottom. And I have quite a few hermit crabs and things that scurry around and eat whatever sinks to the bottom, and it hasn't caused any algae problems or algae blooms. I have tried frozen foods, and people say, well, do you give them a treat once in a while? No, I don't give them a treat once in a while. Like I said, it's either maybe out of laziness, but I feel more out of trying to control my budget, that I'm not spending tons of money on all the newest frozen foods and all my time rinsing mice's shrimps and all that kind of stuff. And the tank, I've been just feeding these two things for the last 2 years, and the colors are great. My fish are healthy. They're the original fish that I got, and little critters are healthy. The little pistol shrimp that comes out and grabs a pellet now and then, he's healthy. So that's how simply I feed this tank, and the one in my bedroom that is a saltwater tank. And I'll quickly go let you see what that one's looking like as it's filling in and growing and doing its thing, being fed so simply and taken care of so simply. There's my firefish, and how this tank, the other tank's over 3 years old. This one is probably coming up on 8 months old, maybe, I'm not sure, but it's filling in nicely and growing well. And I do the same thing in this tank. I use the Reef Energy. I only use 1 cc of the part A and then 1 cc of part B in here every day, and the Coral Frenzy when the lights are off before they come on, and then a couple little pellets for that little guy in there, and that's all I do. And I don't use frozen or anything else, and everything does well. And I think it does cut down on your algae problems when you overfeed and have all that extra stuff in there. But this is what works for me. I mean, if you use something different and it works great for you, good. But over the years I have found that if I keep it simple, and I have had more algae problems with the frozen foods, the live foods, the dumping in liquid Phyto and all that kind of stuff, that this works best. And the Gongaporas do well as you're feeding the Coral Frenzy and the Reef Energy. Really, I found a turnaround in my being able to keep Gongaporas long term when I started using the Reef Energy. I really think there's something in there that does help, because there's a Gongapora in the back there. I don't know if you can see it, but he's doing really well. He's purple and green. Pink one right there. These two up front, a green and a red one. So, but anyways, just to answer whoever's question it was about what I feed my tanks, my salt tanks, there you have it. So I pray everybody's doing well with their tanks, and blessings and happy reefing.